We would like to thank the guild Set Sail for Fail for use of their videos within our guides. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this Warlords of Draenor raiding guide. And in this video, we're going to be taking a look at the Tectus encounter on Mythic difficulty within the Highmaul raid. Now in order to complete this fight, you're going to want to bring 2 tanks, 4 to 5 healers, and then the remaining a balanced mixture of both melee and ranged DPS. Now because this is the Mythic guide for the Mythic encounter, we're not going to be going back and covering all of the heroic mode abilities. You're still going to be dealing with them in pretty much the same way, apart from a few changes that we will cover in a moment. If you'd like to jog your memory on the heroic mode encounter, then please do head on over to our channel to check out our heroic mode guide. Now on the Mythic version of this encounter, there are only a few changes that have been made to some of the flexible / heroic mode abilities, but this is more than enough to try and bring your raid down in an instant. We're also going to be splitting this guide down into 3 phases, despite the fight being one entire phase. We're going to split it down into the Tectus phase, which is the very first part of the fight. Then we're going to split it into the Shards of Tectus, which is once you've killed off Tectus you get the 2 shards. And then we're going to split it into the Motes of Tectus, which are the 4 motes you'll get spawning from each shard that you actually kill. But first of all, we're going to take a look at what changes have been made to the heroic mode abilities. And the first ability that's been changed is called Accretion. And on Mythic difficulty, if any other shards or motes of Tectus are within 10 yards of Tectus when he gains Accretion, they will also gain stacks of the Accretion buff. Now just to remind you, this is a buff that will cause the Tectus or the shards or the motes to absorb nearby earth into their body, increasing their damage inflicted by 5%, and this stacks on them, and the only way to remove the stacks of Accretion is to damage them. Now this does also tie in into how you're going to deal with the shards and the motes, but we're going to cover that in a moment. The next ability that has changed is the Earthen Pillar. Now on the flexible difficulty, he would use this ability when he reaches 25 energy, but on Mythic, he's also going to use this ability when he reaches 50 energy. So there's going to be a lot more movement involved in this fight, and you're also going to need to make sure your ranged are stacking perfectly so that you know exactly where the pillars are going to be landing. And the final Mythic change you're going to have to deal with is a new ability called Hollowed Heart of the Mountain. And basically after either Tectus, the motes or the shards have been shattered, they will then stand again with a fraction of their health, and the hollowed cores will not gain additional energy as their health percentage decreases. So once you've killed one of the shards or Tectus off, then they will effectively spawn again with a small percentage of their health, and you've just got to kill them off again. Something else that is also worth noting is that on Mythic difficulty, the Night Twisted Pale adds that spawn are still going to continue to spawn even once Tectus has been shattered the first time round. So when you're killing off the shards and the motes, you're still going to have to be dealing with the Night Twisted Earth Warpers and the Night Twisted Berserkers that do spawn. Thankfully, they're exactly the same as they were in the flexible mode, with no new abilities to deal with. So now we're going to move on to take a look at how you're going to deal with this encounter, and ultimately gain yourself some very shiny 690 item level loot. So the first part of this fight, which is what we're going to refer to as Phase 1, is where you're going to be taking on Tectus on his own. Now, this hasn't really changed much from the heroic mode version of this encounter. You just need to keep in mind that you're going to get an extra Earthen Pillar spawning when he reaches 50 energy. So because of this, you want your range to be as tightly stacked up as possible, and this also does benefit for AoE healing later on in the fight. You want to also make sure that you're moving at the very outer edge of the room, so that you're keeping the Earthen Pillars out of the way from the rest of the raid. Once you got Tectus low and you eventually do kill him off, you're still going to have to deal with the tectonic upheaval and all the massive healing. But once he has shattered, you do need to keep in mind that you will then get 2 shards spawning, and you will also get the hollowed version of Tectus spawning. So then this is transitioning you into the second phase of the fight, as we're going to call it. And at the start of the fight, you're going to want to kill off the hollowed vision, or whatever it is, of Tectus that does spawn first. And then, instead of focusing down one of the shards, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be focusing down both of them at the same time, so that you kill them off at the exact same time. Now what this does mean is that when their health does get low and they're going to be casting Tectonic Upheaval, you're going to need to use some very strong raid-wide cooldowns in order to make sure that players are actually surviving the mass amounts of damage. You also need to keep in mind that both of these shards will be casting Earthen Pillar at 50 energy as well, so you do still need to stay stacked up and move together as a group. Additionally, in this phase when you're going to be dealing with the shards, you also need to keep in mind that the adds are going to keep on spawning, so your tanks will need to pick up the Night Twisted Pale that do keep on spawning, and you simply want to cleave these off to the side as they're not your highest priority. You're probably going to find that because you're bringing both of the shards down at the same time, the hardest part of the fight is going to be when you're getting them both killed off at the same time and they are both casting Tectonic Upheaval. So at this point you could consider using your Bloodlusts, your Time Warps, your Heroisms in order to help you with the healing. So then transitioning from phase 2 to what we call phase 3, which is where you'll take on the 4 motes of Tectus that will spawn from each of the shards. You'll first of all have to deal with both of the Hollowed Shard of the Mountain versions of the Shards of Tectus, so this will be 2 more adds you need to kill off, which will have lowered health pools, so you want to just kill these off as soon as phase 3 starts. So at this point in the fight, you're going to be taking on 8 motes of Tectus if you brought down the shards at the same time, which in turn means when the motes reach 25 energy, you're going to have 8 Earthen Pillars to deal with, and then when they reach 50 energy, you're also going to have another 8 pillars to deal with. So you really do need to make sure you are moving as a group and avoiding the damage from the pillars. If you didn't use Bloodlust, Time Warp, Heroism at the end of phase 2 when you're killing off the 2 shards, you want to use it here in order to nuke the motes as fast as possible. Again, at this point in the fight, you also need to keep in mind that you're going to have the 2 adds spawning, so you do need to get your tanks to pick these up and tank them, as well as the 8 motes of Tectus that are also going to be alive. This is probably going to be the most hectic part of the encounter, so you do need to make sure you are still dealing with abilities in a suitable manner and not, blowing up the raid by taking the red line through it and just completely killing off all of your players. By using this strategy of bringing down these shards at the same time and then killing off the motes at the same time, you're going to drastically reduce the duration of this encounter and you shouldn't meet any Berserk or Enrage timers. So that's going to do it for this Warlords of Draenor raiding guide. All in all, this fight can be a little bit messy and hectic as I've mentioned, but it is just a matter of dealing with the abilities as and when they do come at you, and not panicking. So if you'd like to view a written version of this guide, you can click on the link that's in the video description below, or head on over to flaskup.com, or alternatively, if you'd like to keep up to date with when we release future Warlords of Draenor raiding guides, then please do feel free to subscribe to the channel. As always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.